From Buffalo to the big leagues, this is MaDi Tells All. Hello, friends. I have a special guest here that I've known for like 3 years now, Scott Yager. Don't get it confused with Yager bombs. I did too many of those in college. Scott, I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me. Welcome to my city. I've been a guest in your city for the past 3 years, and now you live here.
It's so crazy how it all went down, because as I was taking our walk here with our friends, they're like, oh, how did you meet Scott? And I was like, well, funny story is you and Mark both DM'd me around the same time asking me where to go get food in Buffalo, because you were coming not only for a Bills game, but you were also doing a live show, your media pod, or your, oh my God, say it.
Challenge Mania
podcast,
yes,
where they do live events with all the reality stars from the challenge. And it's so cool. You guys were doing it at Helium at that time.
Yeah.
And I was just like, well, what are you guys doing for the Bills game? And where are you tailgating? They're like, we don't really have a plan. And I was like, I got something for you.
Yeah, you're like the mayor of Buffalo, really, is what it is. We indirectly found the mayor of Buffalo, as well as the food queen. The Buffalo food queen is what we say, because some of our wives don't love your actual moniker. But what I'll say is, I actually think an associate of yours was like, you need to contact Madeline. That's how we found you.
Yes,
it was
like buddy John Scott.
And again, at first it was for food recommendations, etc. That's kind of sort of how we intro in. But also what we've got the blessing of doing recently is we worked with a lot of sports teams or people who work with sports teams like you and John. And like when we come to a city, ideally, since I'm the one who makes the schedule, I go, why would we just go to Buffalo on a random weekend? And full disclosure, no offense to Buffalo, if it was limited to that, we'd probably only get to Buffalo once every 3 years. The reason we've been to Buffalo once for the last 3 years every year is because you guys run the best tailgate in the biz, Game Day Hospitality. We love it. It's such a great town. Everyone's awesome. But like, if you can come there for a weekend where a Bills game is going on, it's like a twofer. It takes the travel from being a work expense and turns it into a perk. You know
100%.
I mean? Yeah.
And I feel like when everyone gets that message the first time you guys came to Buffalo, like, hey, we're going to go to a true tailgate experience, and then we're going to go into the game. Like, are they so much more excited? Are they like Bills Mafia? Like, what goes on? Do they know about the Bills?
Yeah. So you guys are known worldwide for having the best tailgates, obviously Buffalo in general, but you guys run the best ticketed tailgate. But everyone knows about jumping through the tables, the Bills Mafia. You guys have the coolest name for your fans and things like that. And like, even myself, like, so I grew up here in the tri-state area, but I'm a Jacksonville Jaguars fan. And obviously there's other teams that have huge fan bases, the Steelers, the Cowboys, the Packers, etc. But you guys are known for having the best fans, the best fan base, the best tailgates. And I will say, since I've been to 3 games, one of which was a Jaguars game where I actually had the balls to wear the Jaguars
How
swag.
were they?
I will say the reason I did it was the year before was the Cowboys game, and I was obviously rooting for you guys. And when I come and you're not playing the Jaguars, I rock the Bills swag. I root for you guys, not just because I love coming to the games, but even before that, I went to school at Syracuse, so I love the area. I can relate to the team that really is. You've had a great playoff run the last few years. You obviously had the Super Bowls in the 90s, but you've never won. I love that, like the never won teams. Like I love that. I feel for you guys, not just as a Jaguars fan, but as a sports fan, right? But what I loved about when I saw you guys play the Cowboys is we went to your tailgate. Half of the people there were Cowboys fans.
There were so many, and that game was raining, shit weather, but the spirits were high.
Yeah, and what's cool is, since you guys run a ticketed tailgate, it appeals to out the away team fans, because the Bills fans, who maybe have been coming there for 40 years, they have their own Range Rover, they grill, blah blah blah. But if you're a Cowboys fan coming to town for the weekend, it's awesome to just, hey, everything's paid for right off the bat. Oh, open bar, oh, great food, wings, etc. But you in Philadelphia or even in New York, like, you would get this hostility that would be like, oh, you know what? I'd rather just do it myself because I'm getting batteries thrown at me. You know, and that's not how it is.
Giants and Jets fans are. I think the Jets fans are worse, but they are ruthless. Like, I've had so many friends that never have gotten fights in their life, like literally gotten fights at those games.
And that's the thing where you go, should I go to this and even enjoy my team at an away game? But not only that, should I go to this like ticketed tailgate? People are going to be drinking. And I saw how you guys treated the Cowboys fans, which was great. So then the next year, when it happened to be that you guys played the Jaguars, I go, hey, you know what? I feel like I could even wear my Jaguars stuff and nobody's going to throw stuff at me. And you didn't. It was great. You guys thromped us. I think you beat us like 38-3. So that helped.
And we won against the playoff games, which I forgot. Were you at that game?
No, I didn't go to the playoff game because it ended up being 1 o'clock. This is what was weird. Like, biggest star in the playoffs, Josh Allen against the Jaguars. Like, I thought the most exciting matchup of week 1. For whatever reason, they put it at 1 o'clock on the Sunday. I was like,
they always do that to us Bills fans so many times when we have the Miami game, which we have in Miami. So it's either they'll do the game in the beginning of September when Florida's disgusting, or it's a 1 o'clock game in November and we're Bills fans so excited to go party all night Saturday, go to 11, go to all the crazy places, and then we have to wake up at the crack of dawn. Everyone else still wakes up at 9. We have to be there at like 6 o'clock in the morning. It's rough buff.
So I was like, you know what? Not going to do it. Watched it at home with my kids. I raised a son who's going to be 7 years old in March. He's a huge Jaguars fan. We watched the game.
And
obviously,
a little bit of Bills.
It was hard. And a little bit of Bills. Okay. It's funny. He has a lot of Bills stuff because every time I come home from seeing you guys, I bring home some Bills stuff. So we actually, for that game, we had like our Jaguars Snoopy holding our little Josh Allen doll, like dunking him in a toilet. But immediately once we lost to you guys, I tweeted this, I put this on Instagram. I said, great game, rooting for the Bills. Hope you guys win the Super Bowl. And you guys got hosed. I mean, come on, that interception.
Did you watch the Bears game?
Of
they
course.
Called it a catch there.
And that's the thing. It's like it was almost like God wanted everyone to have an example of actually when this happens, it's rarely called this way. And it really sucks. And you guys got rid of your coach afterwards. Who knows, by the time people are watching or listening to this, there might be a new coach.
I know. How fast do you think that transition goes? Like
almost. I mean, I feel like
because Pittsburgh fired their coach. Do they have a new coach yet?
He walked away.
He quit,
and technically, so the weird thing about that with Tomlin, because he's honestly, I think, the biggest catch of them all because Pittsburgh's only had 3 coaches ever, I think, or at least it's like 1970.
Yeah, no, 3. That's what I discovered last night.
And he's a great coach. He's still very young. He started very young, so he's still very young, spry. He's obviously the pick of the litter. The problem is he walked away, so it's a little different from a coach getting fired. So if a coach gets fired, the next day he can go out and start interviewing. When a coach decides to leave, like he did, he has to like either get the blessing of the team to start like take another job, or I think they have to formally trade him. So this has happened before.
Drama.
It's not like it's unquestionable. Like it has happened before, but a lot of people are theorizing he might take a year off and do some TV, maybe see what the landscape looks like in a year or two. A lot of the jobs available.
I feel like that would be the dream and a lot less stressful if you could do sports reporting.
Well, the thing is this. So until the Bills job opened up, you would look at the jobs available and be like, do I really want to coach in Cleveland? Do I really want to coach in either Miami or Atlanta, whatever? These aren't great situations. Then now it's like, okay, now the keys are being handed to you and one of the best players in the country, Josh Allen. Does he somehow make, or to be honest with you, this is the other problem. When you got a guy like Tomlin out there, like Mike Vrabel, the coach of the Patriots, right? The coach before him only got 1 year. So another linebacker who played for the Patriots was their coach last year. He got one shot, right? Didn't have a great season. I think they had 3 wins, and they fired him instantly and then grabbed Vrabel, who had been fired by the Titans. So it's possible that whoever takes the Bills job or any of these jobs, if they don't succeed next year and then Tomlin's like, actually, I'm here to take a job, he's going to take one of these jobs again, whether it's this team.
I feel like this year was the most amount of coaches that were fired and left. And I thought it was crazy because now they can just bounce to other teams. But it's like, if you got fired from one team, why would another team want you?
Yeah, trust me. The Titans just hired the guy who was the coach of the Jets a couple of years ago.
Oh, God. What?
And he was,
maybe they got a good deal and they're just not paying them much.
It's so weird. Okay, so I feel the same way about coaches as I feel about quarterbacks, right? Okay. So it seems like there should be at least 50 people who could play quarterback competently. And somehow, some way, every year, it looks like there's less than 20. A guy like Malik Willis on the Packers, just by being a backup who was good for 3 weeks, everyone's like, oh, great, let's have him. It's crazy that for all the great college quarterbacks and whatnot, and I know it's not the same game, when it comes to NFL quarterbacks, there's really only 20 people who can do it. Same thing with coach jobs. It's like you feel like, okay, there's got to be, with all the coaching positions, all the offensive coordinators who overachieve, et cetera, all the Bill Belichick's who are out there, and for whatever reason,
his
it looks
wife,
like
his girlfriend's just the coach now.
Right. Hire her. Let's get her to
literally.
Be the coach.
Maybe that's what the change up. You know what I mean? We'll just have a girl coach at the end of the day.
Yeah, but it's tough. I mean, that's the thing. It's like when it comes to when a team does poorly, whether it's a good team that like. A lot of these teams made the playoffs, won a game, like in the instance of the Bills. They just haven't gotten it done to the extent of winning the Super Bowl, and he gets fired. Then you have the teams who are firing their coach because they didn't get one interception all year. Well, actually, they didn't fire their coach, actually, the Jets. But either way, 1 win, 2 wins. The teams that are plummeting, they fire their coaches. And then you get the good teams that are just, whether it's the Steelers, the Ravens, or the Bills, who are like, you know what? We have Super Bowl aspirations and we're firing our coaches. So you have coaches that are getting fired who win 11 games and then coaches who get fired who win 2 games. And that's why you get 8 coaches openings and not a lot of candidates this year, in my opinion.
Well, Scott, I did not know that you were like such a football fan. But most importantly, I think people really want to know a little bit behind scenes of Scott. I remember, I think it was your idea to start the whole entire Were you a Challenge Mania fan? Were you friends with Mark before? Like, what went down?
So I'll give you the whole story, Cliff Notes-ish, but every time I say that, it ends up being long anyway. So I was, as much of a Challenge fan, MTV reality fan as anybody, but I wouldn't say I was a top 1% or anything like that. I watched every season of The Real World, Road Rules, The Challenge growing up, etc. I went to school to be a film major, and I was a film major in college. Thought, I'm going to graduate from college and I'll be Steven Spielberg's writing assistant and blah, blah, blah. And I'll be working on The Office, and none of that happened. My first job out of college was as a PA on America's Next Top Model. And
what?
Yeah.
My favorite show in the whole entire world?
Yeah.
And wait, so what's a PA?
Production assistant. So you're getting coffee, you're driving people
with
around.
all the models?
Yes.
Rough
with all
life.
the models. Yeah.
I literally, my cousin tried out for that show. That was my show. That was why I joined this little agency that we had in Buffalo, where you learned how to be a perfect little model and silverware and forks and the whole behind scenes. I can't believe that.
So I had never seen the show, but obviously I knew the show. It was cool to even be working right out of college on a show that people had heard of, right? It was filmed here in New York. I was one of the house PAs, which meant, and I started at 4 p.m. I would leave anywhere around 3 to 4 a.m. And then because I wasn't making a lot of money, I was still living in my parents' house in Stamford, Connecticut. Shout out to the 203.
Commuting.
And driving back. So I would leave. It was, the house was in the Upper East Side around 61st Street, ironically near where I was born, and lived till I was 5. And I would drive in around 4. I'd park my Ford Explorer or whatever it was. I'd have to find street parking. I'd work till about 4 a.m. I would drive home. I'd sleep till about noon, whatever, wake up, do it again the next day. Did a really good job to where they wanted to use me on the next season, but that was in LA. So I couch surfed, or I had somebody who let me sublet their apartment, and I did the next season in LA. So I did those back to back. Along the way, worked on Project Runway a little bit, and then ended up doing 3 to 4 seasons of that, which ironically films right in this area we're recording this podcast, the Garment District, as they call it. We used to film it at Parsons, which was on the corner of 40th and 7th. I believe they've since moved to somewhere else. But so those are my first few shows, reality competition shows. And I was, again, started as a PA, worked my way up to coordinator, to production manager, to line producer, not on those shows, but at another company, and did behind the scenes work in reality TV for 10 years. All simultaneously while wanting to be a podcaster. I guess the word didn't exist yet, but influencer, TV host, all that stuff. Those were kind of my grander aspirations, but I didn't know how to get in the door. But I was doing it sort of simultaneously by myself for free on the side. I had a show called A Shot of Yager, which is a take on my name, Scott Yager.
Did you try to approach Yager and be like, let's sponsor this up?
No, because I
no, even today.
Oh, well, we actually approached Yager when we got married, because our wedding hashtag was Jägermeister and Mrs., and we had a Yager cocktail and this and that, whatever.
You're listening, Yager.
But my name is spelled Yager, not with a J, so there's a bit of confusion there. But I did have a great little bit I used to do about having the last name Yager. But either way, so at the time I was interviewing anyone I could get as an interview for this magazine I was working for out of Connecticut called The Sound, right? And this is in 2009, 2010, before the word podcast was something everybody knew. So what I was doing is I was kind of hustling. These people would have to do an interview with me because they would be doing a show at Mohegan Sun or one of these theaters in Connecticut. And I would get these big name comedians or rock stars or actors and things like that. And they would be doing probably 20 interviews in a day, right? And there'd be like a press person on the line, be like, all right, next is going to be Scott Yager from The Sound magazine. It's Connecticut. This is for the Fairfield show, blah, blah, blah. And I would email them before and be like, hey, since I'm recording it for transcription purposes anyway, why don't I put it up as a podcast? That way we can promote all the dates, whatever. Back in 2010, this was just, to the publicists, they're like, yeah, less work for me. Who cares? Fine. Nowadays, that would be a whole different department. They'd be like, no, we're only doing these 3 podcasts. We want to curate our audio form interviews and things like that, because obviously things go viral in a different way. Everyone knows what podcasts are. Back then, they didn't care. So I had this podcast, A Shot of Yager. I was interviewing all these famous people left and right, but nobody was listening because these famous people weren't reposting it, retweeting it, etc., because they're doing 40 interviews interviews that day.
40 interviews. And this was 2010?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I don't even know. Instagram was around?
It was around, but not in the way where certainly podcasts were not present on there at all. There was no way to kind of visualize your clips. And again, this was all audio. Okay. And so.
Even worse. Yeah. Like, that's rough.
The reason it's a part of my story, though, is that all of a sudden one day I get an email from this guy, and it's from this guy named Derek Kaczynski, who's my now business partner, co-host, and was on the Road Rules and the Challenge several times. He won it 3 times, and it was, hello, this is Derek from Road Rules, and I was wondering if you'd like to have me on your podcast. And so he's like, I got your number from Chris. Chris was my boss at Project Runway. He was sort of a mentor of mine, mutual friend of ours. He went to high school with Derek. I said, sure, because of course I had watched the challenge and I wanted to have him on. So I interviewed him. And then at the end of the interview, he said, hey man, you're interviewing all these cool people. He's like, I can only interview people from the challenge, but I have this thing called Ultimate Challenge Radio. He goes, you're interviewing UFC fighters. Like, how cool is that? Like, how do you get that? And I go, well, and I explained kind of the hustle to him. And I go, but look, next week I'm interviewing this UFC fighter, Jake Shields, who has since become kind of a weirdo and maniac as far as his views. But at the time, really cool guy, had actually fought George St. Pierre in the biggest UFC fight of all time. And I said, Derek, would you like to interview him with me? And he goes, are you serious? And I go, sure. So I had him on the line with me and I let him ask him a few questions, whatever. And anyway, I guess this resonated with Derek because we had each other's numbers. I put the podcast thing behind me. I had to kind of dive full into production. Jobs I was working and bosses I was having did not like that. Like during the day, I'd be like tweeting like, hey, check out my Mick Foley interview.
Yeah.
Because they'd be like, you should be booking flights. What are you doing? And I'd be like, well, I sent that tweet from the bathroom. Why does it matter? And it mattered. So long story short.
Hear you on that one.
Yeah. And so this same guy that I had never met in person, but I had interviewed once 10 years prior or 7 years prior, let him interview a UFC fighter with me, emails me or texts me again in 2017, right after I had gotten let go from a job I was at for 4 years. I was about to get married, needed some time off anyway. And he said, hey, it's Derek. I don't know if you saw, but I'm back on the challenge. He had 7 years of not getting called for the challenge. He goes, I'm back on the challenge and I want to start a challenge podcast. Would you want to co-host it with me? I'm at the time thinking, I need something to tell my wife I'm doing, so it looks like I'm doing something, even though I really don't want to get a real job again for about 4 months. So we started doing this podcast, Challenge Mania. I kind of stole a bunch of things from a guy named Rob Cesternino, who has a great podcast network in the reality world. Rob has a podcast, and a guy, Conrad Thompson, who has a great wrestling podcast network, and kind of just as a sponge, took everything they were doing very well and started to kind of do it, but solely for the challenge with this co-host, Derek, who's very popular in the challenge world, and had just gotten back on the show and came in second place. And so immediately, because I knew what an unsuccessful podcast was, I immediately knew what a successful podcast was because I was getting random people tweeting and this and that and whatever. And that's back in 2017 and 18.
So your tweeting was going good.
This is all Twitter, by the way.
Okay.
So the social media landscape has just completely changed since then. There was no such thing as TikTok. There was no such thing as Snapchat. Everything was Twitter based. It was a bit of Instagram based, but when you're doing sort of a podcast and a lot of your stuff is opinions and quippy little things, Twitter was huge. So we basically launched our podcast on the back of Twitter and Facebook. And so, a lot of people were listening. I said to my wife, I said, give me a year. If by the end of the year I'm making as much as I was as a line producer, I'd like to do this. I like the creative fulfillment. And almost immediately, so about 6 months later, I realized, let's take this thing on the road. I've always wanted to be a comedian, a host, this, that. And if that, I get to fill that void in my life. Obviously I never went that route, but I get to now host these live shows, 2 hours, live improvised entertainment on stage. And as sort of the, podcast landscape has gotten so crowded and this and that and downloads and this and everything gets different and this and that, and monetizing has become so hard on that end, we've kind of doubled down on the other thing where, and obviously this is a terrible thing to say, but post-pandemic where people were stuck in their houses for 18 months and didn't have anything to do and things like that, people are craving live in-person entertainment, And
you need right now, like that's something that's so pivoting. It's like dinner and a show.
Yes.
And that's what we've been doing, right? It was at Helium a few times. I've helped you out with like the Vice situation and brunch. Like people need an excuse to get out of their house and go see something. And if you're having these celebrities that you see on TV, the challenge has had 40 seasons.
Yes.
40 seasons. And then last year, it was a season where they brought back the OG cast members and brought them back. And, I found out way more about the challenge from my brother's wife, Michelle, huge fan. Like, I'm just thinking about those moments where you just get to be like, oh my God, they're coming to Buffalo. And not just one or two of them. And you're in this crowded thing. The events are only 150, 200 people. And you guys are doing full-blown meet and greets with the people, hanging out with them and saying, hey, come to this tailgate. Hey, come party with us. Like, they're getting the full-blown experience.
That's what people want. So, what's awesome is what we do, and we started when we did Buffalo, we did the show. And at Helium, post-show meet and greet. And then now what we've done the last 2 years is kind of just more of a stripped down version with a little bit of a talk and a meet and greet. And that's what we do when we evolve in a market that's not as huge, to be honest with you, as Buffalo, for instance. Like we do Philly, we do New York, we do it big every time. 300 people, we sell it out. And Buffalo, just knowing it's a smaller market, even though it's close to Toronto or Canada.
Do you guys have a big Canadian fan base?
We do, but the problem is like, and I always tell people, I go, hey, when we're in Detroit, come over to Detroit. When we're in Buffalo, come to Buffalo.
Yeah.
But the idea of going to Canada is a little bit intimidating because I'd have to bring everybody there. There's the
Green
whole
cards.
international thing,
Yeah.
get the visas, this, that, whatever, working over there. There's like a right way to do it, a wrong way to do it. So we've never gone to Canada, but we do have a big Canadian following. When I say we, I mean the show itself. And we're an extension of the show itself. Like that's the other thing is, so we're companion content. And what I kind of fell into with this podcast and this role is that, for years I dreamt of, I want to be the Madeline. I want to be the Bill Simmons, the Mark Maron, the person that people are coming to watch me talk to someone. And it doesn't matter who the person is. They want to watch Scott Yager talk to them.
Yes. Oh my God, I love that because that's like kind of how I'm feeling. Someone the other day was like, what is your podcast about? I'm like, every day is so different.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm strictly 1 week of filming is all entrepreneurs, and then, but I would say that's always the rhythm. But
that's what you have.
I
don't get that.
Yeah, I just want people to come hear me yap and ask good questions.
I, for years, decades even, wanted that to be the case, and it just sadly wasn't. And then one day I was handed this, hey, but what about if you just talk about this one thing? Would you trade getting to talk about everything for success if it meant you talk about this one thing predominantly? Now, don't get me wrong. We go on tangents. We let people know, we're big sports fans. We love wrestling. We go to concerts, etc. I'm from Stanford, blah, blah, blah. I live in New York. And what's cool about that is you might be putting a podcast out that 20,000 people listen to. And among those 20,000 people, 19,000 of them won't even notice that you casually mentioned this restaurant in Buffalo or whatever it is. But then a few people will email you and they'll say, oh my God, I can't believe you shouted out that rib joint. I used to work there. Or even better, someone goes, oh, you're coming to Buffalo? I run the best tailgate. Or I work for the 76ers. Would you ever want to come and do a thing here? And so we sprinkle that stuff in, and we'll occasionally do a spinoff podcast here or there. But for the most part, people want the challenge from us, And I've tried to branch out and see how it goes. But for the most part, again, I know when people get too big for their britches or whatever the saying is, and you stop giving people what they really want, that's when they go, you know what? Only 1 out of every 5 of these podcasts is about the challenge. And really, that's what I want. So I'm going to unsubscribe. Right? And so what I've learned in the last 7 or 8 years is I'm going to try to make this experience as fruitful and fun for me while still delivering that challenge dopamine to these people, because that's what they come to me for. So that's why we come to Buffalo and, hey, guess what? We're doing the challenge event, but really I get to go to the game and the tailgate and do what I would probably be doing normally on a Sunday, and find the things that I love and gravitate to and make them sort of adjacent to the thing that we want to keep delivering to these people, which is we want to be the #1 companion content for super fans of the challenge. Because it's a
Which
show
you
that's
have
on,
some super fans. I mean, people coming up with their own, merch that they're bringing to the things. I'm sure you guys, what's some crazy stuff you got gifted?
Ooh, yeah. People are really thoughtful with the gifts. They know that's the other thing. It's like some people might find this creepy. I don't personally, but we talk about our kids a lot. Obviously, people follow us on social media where a lot, and mileage varies. I get people who are like, they keep the kids off social media, but like both Derek and myself, our kids are all over our social media. So like, there are people who will make, like, I've gotten a couple times, I believe Brandon will make us these custom blankets that'll have like my kids and my family on them, or like, like custom made signs when our kids are born and gifts and things like that, or little onesies that say like, someone made a onesie once that was like, 100 proof Yager was something like that. Or like, future challenger, things like that. They'll make for either Derek's kids, my kids. Olivia and Theo just had a baby boy. Anytime a challenger has a kid, people come to the show, baby gifts in tow. My car seat that we still have used for 3 kids. So we started Challenge Mania November 2017. My first son, I have a son and 2 daughters, was born March 2019. And I don't know how they did it. We did not advertise this. The Challenge Maniacs found my wife and I's registry and teamed up, and a lot of them collaborated and bought us like a $400, $500 car seat.
Okay.
Because these car seats, by the way, anyone who doesn't have kids, car seats are expensive, and they should be because they're saving your kid's life if whatever happens. But so the car seat we have used for 3 kids was purchased by a group of our podcast listeners, and it's super thoughtful and never expected. But yeah, that's how much these people care. And that's what's great about whether you're an Instagram influencer, turned podcaster or TV star. the relationship that people have to you and with you by listening to your voice, hearing your voice, you're always in an earbud or whatever and things like that. They feel like they know you, but that's because they do know you. They end up caring about you a lot. They want to, I mean, whether it's a physical gift or even just like text conversations and things like we just sadly, one of our listeners passed away out of nowhere. He was a couple years younger than me. I want to say he was 36 or 37. His name is Paul, and he was very active in our we have a group chat on Patreon where it's me and probably about, a few hundred.
Yeah, and I met some of the other girls that like help you run it.
Yeah, we have those people
Buffalo,
too. Those people are, I mean, that's also like, we could not do what we do without volunteer help from people who, they're willing to donate their time. And obviously it starts with they're a fan of the show and they want to be able to, whether it's come for free or have that added access or get to come to dinner with us and whatnot. But we couldn't, it's like literally impossible to do without them. But even just the people who communicate with us, and this was a guy I would DM with, or we had a big group chat. And then sadly, like a couple weeks ago, actually, his wife just came in the group chat on his name and said, "Hey, really sorry to say this, but Paul Shaler passed away this weekend." Ugh. And I was trying to explain this to my wife, and I'm almost embarrassed to say this because it sucks to say this, but it's like, you hear about people who you were friends with in high school or you worked with a couple times, or family members even. I'm embarrassed to say it, but like I talked to this guy who was a listener of our podcast, a patron of our podcast. I communicated with him, whether it's text or DM or whatever you want to say. Like when I say 100 times, literally 100 times more in the last year than like any extended member of my family, even more
it's
honestly
hard
than my brother and my parents.
I hear that because I get that a ton with the random people that I just DM with every single day. It's because I'm way more on Instagram than I am texting on my phone. Sometimes I'm like, hey, if you really want a hold of me, like my virtual assistant, he'll just call me on Instagram. Mm-hmm. And that's a sad world, but I'm always editing and do that kind of stuff. But people who support you so hard, because I've had, not my family's huge supporters, but friends that I went to college with and everything like that just like, that I don't really talk to as much. And then I have random strangers that have taken me out of those depression swings. And I'm a very person, I'm surprised I even used that word. I've hardly ever been depressed in my whole entire life. It's only been when I moved to New York City, how mean people were that I moved here. People were sending me the craziest messages. And
they're mad that you left Buffalo?
Yeah, that I left Buffalo. And then when I started this podcast, I had people very close to me be like, good luck with that. Only 25% of podcasters can make it. Like everyone's doing it now. And I'm like, okay, but every day there's a new quote unquote celebrity or influencer who's blowing up. And I'm someone who has an amazing story to tell. But it really made me like, I question if I should be living in New York City anymore. Like it was rough. And then it was the random people who were commenting me when I openly said, I'm going to make a video about this. And random people were just messaging me and I was like, oh my God, why? Yeah. Like it made me so much happier.
It's interesting because, and this guy, we called him Evil Paul, right? And the reason why is because there's another Paul who was a longtime subscriber and everything, who was less evil, if you will, as far as like he was very non-confrontational. Everyone loved him, and everyone loved this Paul too. But this Paul historically would almost every episode would write in a ton of questions, multiple questions, and they would often be very cutting, biting questions. Like let's say hypothetically there were two challengers on the show that like had an affair, right? And obviously it's not something
that happens.
It does happen.
Yeah.
I'm not going to bring that up. If they want to bring it up, that's fine. But I'm not going to be the one to like sever an entire relationship with a future guest, a future live show collaborator, etc. Just to ask a question for you that you've been wanting to know if they're at home probably struggling with this thing and need to work it out with their husband or wife or whatever. And so often he would write in questions that I would frankly just not ask, right? And after a while, I started referring to him as Evil Paul. To differentiate him from the other Paul who would ask very, by comparison, harmless questions. But so this guy cared very deeply, but in a way that sometimes, it wasn't toxic in any way, but it would sometimes cross the line of like, well, I'm going to filter that through the Scott Yager, is this appropriate or not? But this guy cared very deeply about everything he watched and whether it's even the challenge, but movies and things like that. He was very passionate. And he was in this group chat that we have on Patreon and in my DMs like almost daily, if not weekly. And so I'm someone who I respond. So I respond if you text me, if you DM me, if you whatever, I just respond, right? I'm not so inaccessible that I'm able to eventually respond. And I also just for whatever reason just want to respond, right? And so this guy ended up being a part of my day-to-day life then, like I said, whether it's family members, my best man, my wedding, whatever, just because when you have such a history with somebody, there almost has to be like we need to catch up. Let's have a call, whatever. And then 6 months go by, you realize I haven't talked to my best friend in half a year. But whereas for whatever reason, the podcaster subscriber relationship these people have no issue DMing you every single thought that goes through their head, right?
Literally.
Every day.
Every day.
And again, I respond. And so I'm trying to explain to my wife, she's like, and I'm not going to say she wasn't, it's not like she was insensitive about it, but she was wondering, I think without even saying it, why it was affecting me so much that a listener or someone had passed away. And I was trying to explain to her, I'm like, this is going to sound terrible, but this is going to affect my day-to-day more than 99% of the people in my life that on paper, yes, are they maybe more lasting relationships that I've had, people that we've gone out to dinner with and that or that I fought to be invited to our wedding. Yes, but I did not speak to them even in text or DM form as much as I spoke to this guy.
And two, I feel like you're carrying the weight of all the other followers that are in that group chat that have shared those conversations, even harmful arguments with them. Yeah. And then and then you feel bad for the wife too.
100%.
You know what I mean?
Raised a lot of money. And that's the thing. It's like, so these people, a lot of the fellow listeners had become friends with him. And when I say friends, it's so funny. I was just listening to this. I was listening to a masterclass and it was talking about how a lot of people try to say that online relationships or like someone you've never met or whatever, those aren't valuable, but that's just not true. That's not how it works, right? In the last 10 years, people communicate almost more so with those people, those online friends, those pen pals, whatever you want to call them, than their in-person friends, where if you're not in person with them, you're probably not talking to them as much unless you have like a big fantasy football group chat or whatever it is. And so what I'll say is, like, a lot of these people, they care so deeply about this person. He had been a big part of their life. And I know it will not even scratch the surface of being able to help because he was a lawyer and he has 2 kids and a wife. And obviously it's going to be a long road ahead for them. But like, I know that's, going on $20,000 has been raised on the GoFundMe and people have been donating to their college funds and things like that. And that's only possible because of the general community.
That's been social media is for everyone's advantage, those kind of things. Obviously, I love watching those videos when a guy will act like he's homeless and then another homeless man gives him $1 and then all of a sudden they're raising $1 million. Like, because social media, can go 2 ways.
Yeah.
There's a lot of positive and there's a lot of negative. And now that your life is on social media more than ever, what does that look like?
Well, for me, I get off easy because it's like the more famous you are, the more people want to tear you down, the more like social currency they get
or try to take advantage of you and use your connections.
Sure. Yeah. And so I'm like, I think right now it's, obviously to this world, I matter a little bit, which is great. I can benefit in some ways. Obviously people can try to go at me in other ways, but these people who have been on TV even once or twice, like I just watch from afar and it is just mortifying how much joy people get out of trying to tear them down. And like, unfortunately, a podcast or like a super fandom, that's kind of the give and take of it. Like it's almost hard to separate caring so deeply about a show that you're willing to pay $15 a month to listen to a podcast about it and say, but only care in this one positive way. Like, don't care when two people.
Oh, amazing. So you do subscription based with your podcast?
Without that, we wouldn't be alive
amazing
today.
So I was going to ask if most of it is the live show, because you guys have an amazing turnout. I've been to a bunch of your events, even in New York and Buffalo, and it's sold out every single time.
Yeah. But if you want to get businessy, so basically we have 3 main revenue streams, right? And so basically we have a free podcast that is out there every week. Our interviews are 100% free. They go out once a week. You can listen to our hour to 90-minute episodes with a cast member, or this week we have the host, TJ Lavin, on. And those are riddled with ads, right? Those are ads that at one point, it was me reading the ad, hey, Brooklyn in sheets, 25% off. You just got to put the code Mania, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
That has sort of dissipated, and now they're electronically, digitally placed targeted ads. So if like you're living in Phoenix, it might be like, get Suns tickets at suns.com.
Yeah.
And if you're in...
That's huge, because I feel like that's, we have not... I've done some like small little things where I've just implemented into conversation with brand deals or like restaurants and all that kind of stuff. But I love listening to Call Her Daddy, but it's like it goes and Dave Portnoy, like it's a lot of just infomercial.
And those big traffic, big money podcasts that are doing huge brand deals and they have to read the ad once and it's there forever. That's great. But what is another reason I think this is great for like breaking into podcasting as well is that like, even if you're doing 100 downloads, 1,000 downloads, 2,000 downloads, if you link up with an audio podcast, RSS feed hosting platform, like ours is Spreaker, for instance. So shouts to Spreaker, but there are many. And you use the monetization feature, which you do need to, at least at first, pay for. They will sprinkle in ads to where, hey, if you're getting 10 downloads, you're probably going to get a half a penny, but you're going to get a half a penny. If you're getting 1,000, you're going to get 40 pennies. If you're doing whatever. And so our podcasts get littered with those ads, and that's a little chunk of change. Then to incentivize people that say, hey, if that experience for you is not cutting it. If you want our stuff ad-free, if you want it early, if you want it in video, and if you want a full bonus podcast every week that we don't put up on the main feed,
Ooh,
although
okay.
we do a teaser of it, so we'll put like
Yeah.
the first 15 minutes up. You have to subscribe to us on Patreon, which, because Patreon is like the big bad word. Oh my God, you want my money? We hyperlink it to challengemaniacs.com. So we say, hey, join the pod squad, challengemaniacs.com.
I like it.
We don't want to have the word Patreon, the word GoFundMe, whatever out there at the beginning, because we want people to go to the site and decide if they want to do it. And sometimes when you like kind of from afar scream, we need your money, the people go, oh, I'm not even going to look, right?
Yeah.
That's when you see the Santa Claus clanking the thing outside of the supermarket, you cross the street.
Or like,
you know?
the terrible car salesman or people that when you're out with them, okay, I don't know, it must be New York, but in LA and when I was just at Art Basel, but with like in the first 2 seconds of conversation, people are like, what do you do?
Yes.
And I'm like, whoa. It's different if you're at a networking event, but when I'm at a networking event, I still try to give it that 3 to 5 minutes. Like I know you're supposed to so it's like speed dating. You're just supposed to go around. But like I was taught, and something that I've just always implemented in my life is for 45 minutes within first meeting someone, I do not ask what they do.
Yeah.
The conversation gets deeper and deeper, and then I kind of can figure it out. But without asking, what do you do? I could say, oh, it sounds like you're in the podcast world. Me too.
I get it even worse than that. So my wife hates this because I have kind of an inferiority complex about saying what I do, because the follow-up question, whether they say it out loud or they're just thinking it is, can you make money off of that? Or like, how much do you make off of that? Or is that your real job or whatever? And I can say proudly that it is, but that's what people want to know. Whenever, and this isn't limited to podcasting. It can be whether you're an influencer or a stand-up comic or a food critic or any job that sounds cool that somebody wishes they could have. Like I did voiceover work for a long time. I still do. If you need voiceover work, you can call me. But so either way, when you're doing something that somebody secretly wishes they were doing that sounds more fun than their job, the first question they want to know is, can you actually make money doing that? And are you making more money than me?
Yeah.
And they're trying to either ask that in a roundabout way or they're trying to find out in a roundabout way. And I'll say, just to take it back to the Patreon. So number 2 of our revenue stream is subscribers. And so the most popular tier is $15 a month, and that gets you all of our bonus content. So like video, for instance, we made the decision when we migrated to video to not just put it all up for free on YouTube or Instagram, etc. We use clips of it to promote the episodes, but if you want to watch the episode entirely, you have to pay $15 a month. Otherwise, you got to wait for the ad-riddled audio to go up. And some people will wait for the ad-riddled audio to go up, and they say $15, podcasting should be free, fine. But some people who go, we want video, they'll $15.
I feel like after the fans I've met through you guys, they definitely are
And look,
down.
it's not 1 million people, but if 1,000 people do that, that's a nice chunk of change for 2 people.
100% to just cover those costs, because no one tells you how hard it is. Even being signed by a podcast studio, shout out Gotham Podcast, but it's a lot of work to take those clips and make it into social media content. And then now YouTube shorts are huge. And that's where I've had some of my videos 200,000, 50,000, 140,000. And I'm gaining like a lot of followers from there. But it's a lot and to keep up with, because now I'm not only on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, but now I'm on YouTube checking to make sure I didn't miss any comments, because that's a whole different demographic that I've never been a part of before.
That's what I do. I'm on my phone. I'm glued to my phone all day, every day. My wife hates it. Not to keep going back to my wife, but and I get it. Like it looks like, oh, is he even really here? Is he present? To me, I look at it as like, I'm blessed that I can actually be on the playground with my kids. Yes, I'm kind of glued to my phone, but at least I'm here.
Yep.
Whereas like, in the 40s, the 50s, you're taking the train into work, you're working at a factory, whatever. I don't have to do that. But to go back to the comments of it all, every single DM comment I get, a lot of them are, when does this go on sale? Hey, how can I do this? Hey, is this worth it?
And no one understands that, because I run not only my accounts, but game day and all that kind of stuff. It's customer service 101.
Yes.
We answer every single DM back.
Yeah.
We try to keep up with some of the comments, but man, oh man, we're doing like 2 million impressions a month on that one, and it's a lot. But as long as at least the DMs, but a lot of times when it's tailgates, oh, what does this include? I had questions all day. Oh, premium liquor, like what kind of liquor? My husband only drinks this. Like I'm literally having conversations with strangers every day, all day. And it does look like I'm on my phone the whole time. I just went to vacation with my parents in California, and my parents just thought like I would be able to hang out with them the whole time. And I'm like, oh no, like I still got to work, but I'm on a beach and I'm doing stuff on my phone. So be blessed.
And that's the thing is like the phone is the gateway both to any of this content existing, right? Like that's, you know, when we were growing up, it was, oh, you have to watch TV. It's all on the TV. We're all in the room. We're watching the TV. There were all the gatekeepers that came with having a show was a million people had to say, yes, sign off. Madeline gets a show. It's on NBC at 8. Now you don't need that. You can just do it yourself. But the give and take of it also is that you can do everything from that phone, right? It's your office, it's your computer, it's etc. And I get a lot of like, oh, you're addicted to your phone. You're on your phone all the time. But when I'm quote unquote on my phone, I'm doing one of 20 different things. You wouldn't walk in on somebody like drawing something and be like, oh, you're addicted to a canvas, you know? Whereas like, that's what I'm doing sometimes. I'm designing a flyer or like I'm checking a food menu. You wouldn't look at something like looking at a menu and be like, oh, you've been on that menu all day.
Yeah.
And it's like, but you're doing one of 20 things, but it all looks to the naked eye like you're playing Snood or whatever game on your phone or you're scrolling.
I don't have any games on my phone.
Neither do I. I have the game of life. That's what I say. Yeah.
The game of life. So I would love to know, you know, I feel like Mark Long is one of your biggest guests, motivators. He is just such a natural entertainer. When did you guys first meet? And give me something that maybe the people don't know about him or your friendship.
So just to clarify, so Derek is my business partner and co-host on Challenge Mania. The reason you've never met him is because sadly, so he's not as available as Mark. Mark has no kids, 54-year-old bachelor. If you're looking, ladies, they call him the Godfather. So Derek does not come to all of our shows. To go back to that third revenue stream, we do a ton of live events and shows, an average of about 2 a month. And Derek just doesn't have the bandwidth to be able to go to all those. He has 2 kids, one of which is 16 years old that he has with an ex-wife. And then now he has a 2-year-old with his new wife. And so for him to leave 2 times a month, in addition to still filming the challenge for 3 to 4 months a year, sometimes he has to take one off. Sadly, he's had to take off all 3 of the Buffalo ones. So cut to Mark Long.
That makes sense.
Mark Long is such a great business partner, co-host, fill-in guy, entrepreneur in his own right, because this is one of the first reality stars ever. Okay. So he was on the first season of Road Rules, which was 30 years ago in 2000.
That's how when he slid into the DMs to ask about food, I was like, this can't be him.
Yeah.
I did not know the name. And then I go on there and I see the face and I'm like, oh my God, because that is like my young little self. I don't know how old I was when that show went on.
95.
Probably,
how old were you in 95?
Oh, wait, that's when, okay, then I must watch the reruns because I was born in 93. Okay.
Yeah, I was 10 in 95. And like, I remember probably watching reruns as well. The same way when I grew up watching Saved by the Bell, I one day realized I was watching reruns on Channel 11 that had aired 5 years prior.
That's so funny. I didn't even think about that.
NBC. But and that's how it was back then. You could literally be watching a show that had aired. I remember like, if you watched like Nick at Night, you were watching shows from like the 70s, but you were just watching them at night. So you thought their first run. And so The Godfather, Mark Long, was the first road ruler ever. They literally used him to make the pilot. So they shot a pilot. It was just one episode to try to sell the show to MTV. He was one of 8 people on that. They then cut every other person from the pilot and recast it for the series. But the one person they brought back was Mark Long. So Mark Long was on the first season of Road Rules in 95, and he's been on TV ever since. He's been on Sweet Valley High, Even Stevens, VIP.
Even Stevens?
Yes, he's had guest cameos on all these shows. He's hosted the challenge. He's hosted reunions. He's hosted after shows.
And he directs now too.
He produces. Yeah. So, and during the pandemic, he created or helped create the Challenge All-Stars, which was the spinoff that kind of reintroduced the Mark Longs and the Dereks of the world back into the fold. Because MTV had sort of thought, hey, we have to, and rightfully so, we have to repopulate our contestant base and take people from Love Island and Are You the One and new shows, Big Brother, Survivor, etc., because Real World and Road Rules were no longer. But there's such a large portion of the fan base that still wants those people, right? And so they did a spinoff for Paramount Plus when they launched a streaming service that has done 5 seasons now called The Challenge All-Stars, where Mark Long is the executive producer. He gets a check for every single season, even if he's not on it. And then also, that's the real money. Yeah. And then also, he's been on the show several times. He was back for season 40.
That Bachelor just keeps getting better looking, you know?
And he's 54 years young. He still can do it. I mean, he's one of the last people to beat Jordan in an elimination. A lot of people think Jordan is like one of the best modern challengers. He's in his mid-30s, and Mark beat him in his 50s on All-Stars. He still looks great, sounds great. I mean,
this man is jacked. And I don't know how tall he is. What is he? 6'4"?
He's about, I think 6'3", probably, maybe 6'4".
He gives 6'7" energy.
Yeah. Yes, 100%.
He is but he's just like so outgoing, so entertaining.
He decided to take up professional wrestling like when he was 52 and has wrestled Matt Cardona.
Well, that's
who just
smart
went back to
when
WWE.
You're on the challenge. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
because
but a lot of people wouldn't do it at in their 50s, you know? And like obviously The Miz went from doing Real World in the Challenge to being one of the biggest pro wrestlers in the world. There's a bit of crossover there, but this guy had the balls to do it when he was in his 50s and still occasionally
Inspiring
wrestles for
as all.
BRCW. Shouts to Matthew Mashler and everybody down there. But what I love about Mark is, and I love this about anybody, yourself included, it's what I love about you. He's a hustler, you know, and it doesn't mean, hey, I was on TV once, twice, or 30 times. Now I'm done. I'm gonna let everything come to me. No, he's out there texting me 3 times a week. Hey, what about this idea? What about that idea? Hey, think we could sell this show? He does any cameo that's asked of him within reason. He does. He'll appear on any show. He was a guest judge at the Miss Universe last year.
Pretty much I'll say yes to anything. As I've gotten a little older and in the entrepreneur, it does sometimes have a price tag.
Sure.
But I've done many things for free. But I'd say the things that fell in my lap or whatever was this podcast. Like, I moved to New York City in the first 2 weeks. I get a DM from Gotham Podcast Studio.
Amazing.
Like, and it was just, and then we had a meeting, and then right away it was like, we want to sign you. Because I am just always going out there and hustling and having to pitch my soul every single day, because in Buffalo, such a blue collar city, people didn't understand influencers. And I was always getting asked gift cards and free food. And I did free food and gift cards for like 3 years. And I was like, we got to figure out how to make money with this business. And that's when I really started going hard with the clothing line and doing so many other things. But I appreciate you saying that, because I hustle.
I want to tell a
hustle.
story, by the way. So I'm gonna tell a story. So we're eating at a steakhouse in Buffalo, and it was you, me, Mark Long. I want to say it was Ryan Kehoe. A couple reality stars were with us. And someone came over to the table and they had that vibe of, I'm going to come and say hello, ask for a picture with someone, you know, tell them my story, which happens a lot when you're out to dinner with the MTV people. And they came over, and I realized within like a second or two, they had no interest. I mean, clearly had no interest in me, but they didn't even know who Mark was or care, or Ryan. They were there to tell you how much they loved you and how inspiring you were. And it was a local Buffalo person. And that's why I say
Is it the Chop House?
Yeah. And you are like the mayor of Buffalo, but not only, I forget what this person said exactly, but it was something about how you were inspiring them
To start their own business.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that in a place like Buffalo, and that's why it can be intimidating, obviously, to move to New York, where everyone is doing something. Everyone's rushing past you. If you don't, you know, if you do hold the door, if you don't hold
even
the door,
the homeless
somebody,
man's on his next entrepreneurship,
hey,
you
keep
know?
it going. Hey, blah, blah, blah. You go to give somebody money on the street, they're like, that's not enough. Hey, mama, hey, here's my CD, whatever. And like, so you were obviously a big fish in a small pond, but in a way that obviously inspired probably a lot of those other fish to get out there, do something, etc. Whenever I land in a city, my algorithm, which obviously has me pegged as like a food guy, which I am, like immediately will land in Miami, and my Instagram will immediately start showing me food influencers in Miami. And I'll say, like, in Miami, there's a ton of them, right? Whereas like in Buffalo, I'm sure there's a few more now, but when you started, you were probably one of, if not the first one. And so that shows people that, like, hey, Buffalo is a great food town, great place. People like myself are traveling to Buffalo. We need to get that content. It's informational
100%.
to us, but also that content is like crack for just like, you know, the algorithm, where I say all the time, like, we grew up where the goal would be to have a show on the Food Network, right? And or the Cooking Channel or what have you.
Which Mark was on, the worst chef in America.
And I'm not saying that's not great, and I think it's still a great pathway to go. But to the next generation, whether it's people 25 or under, that does not matter at all. It, like, to them, the Jack's Dining Room guy, who's like a big guy.
Love his content.
Yeah, he's great. There's a guy who gets like, oh, I got thrown out of the best restaurant, whatever. Everyone's got their hook, right? There's this one girl, her moaning Myrtle or whatever. She moans if something's good, right? And like these people mean more to the next generation because they're watching them on their version of the TV than if you were on Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives with Guy Fieri or Bobby Flay or what have you. And you fall into that category too, where this person was coming up to you at the restaurant, looking at you with the same adoration, like you were somebody who had, you know, made it on TV, because to her you had, or to him, I forget, I think it was a her, you had made it. And to that, it was inspiring to her, because not only had you made it, but you'd made it in a way that was attainable to her, you know? And like, I just went up to my school, Syracuse University. They just started the Center for the Creator Economy, because they're trying to hitch their wagons to this stuff.
I love that Syracuse has a huge tax write-off. I mean, New York State in general, but like in Syracuse, there's so many studios coming out of there. And my friend Ryan Monolopoulos was just filming with Whoopi Goldberg for some movie in Syracuse. And
those
I was like,
movies.
what?
That's the thing. It's like, so movies, Syracuse has always been at the forefront, whether it's film, television, radio, movies, especially, like you said, the tax write-off. But now they're trying to get ahead of the game on this, on the influencer world, on the, you can just get out there and do it. and they're calling it the Center for the Creator Economy. They just launched it. They're kind of still figuring out, like, is it a major? Is it a school? Is it a center? Whatever. But it's a cross section of Newhouse, which is the public communication school, and then also the business school, Whitman. And it's sort of, again, them they're at the forefront of it.
If they ever need me to speak there.
Hey, and I'm sure they would. And
Please, I speak at UB every single year. I love it, about entrepreneurship, social media marketing, but it's not like a true class there. So I come as a guest and kind of inspire students. But that's
I'll
amazing.
say it's like they're at the forefront of it. I think they're the first school to officially do it, but I still think they're 10 years, not too late. I'm not saying they're too late, but what's funny is, like, how long have you been doing the
5 years?
5 years. Okay. So exactly the right time where I think it went from, like, for instance, I mentioned my first podcast back in 2009, 2010, 2011. That was too early, right? We started Challenge Mania in 2017. That was like right time to start a podcast, especially audio based. You started your Instagram and your visual, video influencing, food influencing, however you would call it, at the exact right time, where every single person, that's where they're going for information, for content, etc. Now today, when people come to me and they go, hey, I want to start a podcast, I want to start this, I go, look, I'll be honest, now is not the time where I would say it's going to be easy for you to do this. Now, that being said, if you're good enough at it, if your content is quality, everyone has the opportunity.
Yeah, I think the person who was saying to me, like, good luck with your podcast, I'm like, podcast is half the battle. I already have the social following and 100,000 people that can back me up to then organically flow into that. But one of my friends who started a podcast out of nowhere, yes, it's very hard.
Well, this is how, and I'll say this, like, so we are, I would say, I would call us successful, right? At least financially. But when it comes to the visual of it, like, this is now what people think of when it comes to a podcast. It looks like a little talk show. Okay. Netflix just absorbed from Spotify, The Ringer, they've Breakfast Club. They've bought a lot of podcasts that already existed. Now they're starting their own podcast. Pete Davidson, Michael Irving. And again, now they're going to be on Netflix, right?
Yep.
And so it's so weird, the circle of life, where it's like podcast was this redheaded stepchild that was created to not have to be on or say yes or no to the Netflixes of the world or even the TV stations of the world. This is what it is. And it has now come around where they've gotten so popular and so big that now those things want the podcast to now be their TV shows and talk shows. So the barrier of entry today is not just, do you have a headset mic and a $30 to set up a Podbean account? Now it is, hey, do you have a studio space? Do you have a production team? People
want to see the high quality. And if you're stopping and scrolling and you see this professionalism, you're kind of like, oh, damn, what is that about? You know?
I will say the clip culture, I call it clip culture, is another reason where I would say to people, whether when it comes to the ceiling of how well you can do financially on your content, right? So that's another reason we've pivoted and do so many of the live shows, right? So when you do a live show, which we do, and again, we try to keep the overhead as low as possible. We try to do venues where they're supplying the staff, whether it's a comedy club or a theater or a city winery, et cetera. Again, rely a lot on volunteer help, things like that. Obviously, we pay the cast members and guests, but those are things where it's like, okay, that's a quantifiable, hey, we sold 300 tickets. They were a pretty penny. They come with a meet and greet, et cetera. Boom. If we scale those up, we can do well. Whereas the clip culture has taught people, the next batch of podcast listeners or fans or whatever, they go, oh, I follow you on Instagram. I see those 3 or 4 juicy clips. That means I watch or listen to your podcast, right? And they never digest it in a way where you're getting,
get on YouTube and subscribe and watch the long form content.
Exactly. And even to go back, and that's why we started the Patreon early, is that, for instance, to even get, and we get like a solid check from our digital advertising and things like that. But the difference, like the amount of downloads we would have to even get $15 is like hundreds, right? If not thousands, right? To get $15. Whereas if we can just convince you to pay $15 a month to watch us or listen to us and get our bonus podcast.
You're convincing me. I think that's the next
It's
move.
a nice arm to have.
Yeah. Or just like some of my like more like juicy content where I'm like not ready to put it on Instagram.
Oh, well, 100%. I'll say, hey, Patreon is like OnlyFans with words instead of bikinis. Or
okay. But my mom's always like, Madeline, if you did, I'm like, I could never do that. But like, I got some fun stories that maybe only my listeners. But sadly, we have to
Let's do it.
Wrap it
if you
up.
Want the rest of this? Go on OnlyFans.
Yeah, right. But I was like, if you have any like more everywhere that they can follow you, any big events, tell the cam.
Yeah. So not sure when you're running this. So I'll say the easiest thing to do is go to challengemania.live to see if we're coming to a city near you. We probably are. We try to hit every major, market, whether it's a couple hours from you or whatnot. Check out who the guests are. Challenge Mania podcast. You can subscribe anywhere you get your audio. It's free. Or if you want to go to challengemaniacs.com, support us. We will make it worth your while. Bonus content, video, other things like that. But this was a pleasure. This
Amazing.
was great. Thanks for having me.
And everyone, like the Y2K generation, I know we have so many listeners from that. If you watched Road Rules, Real World, MTV, all these reality shows, that is what Challenge Mania has on there.
Yeah.
And then the podcast to go along with it, the live shows, like it is like living in a dream. You go to these events and I'm like, oh my God, I've seen so many of these kids when I was like in high school watching MTV, getting ready in the morning. Now it's on CBS. But such a pleasure having you, Scott. And thank you for everyone. And this is MaDi Tells All. From small town roots to the big city hustle, remember your past doesn't define you. Your passion does. If something hits home today, share it, tag me, even write in. Be a part of this community. This isn't just my mic, it's ours. Check the episode description below for all the links. Until next time, keep building your empire your way.